Cool. Well, so let's dive in. So this is me. If you're on any of the Philly networks, social channels, Slack, Discord, you've likely seen this. If you've seen me on Twitter, I think it's either this or it's the professional photo. If you see this, it's probably me. Or if you see someone spell their name like I do, it's also might be me. But a little bit about me, I'm a software developer. I work for a consulting firm named Parveda Solutions. My big focus has been in web development for the past 4 years. Specifically React. It's been a wild ride. React is so much different than it was 4 years ago, and I'm very thankful for that. I also fly drones. I've got a few different ones of different sizes. Some you can fly inside, some you have to fly outside. Before all this Corona stuff happened, I used to go bouldering, really like climbing, getting out and being physical and active. And overall, just a Philly fan, like there's gritty, there's a fanatic. Eagles fans are insane, but it's overall it's a great city. We got people like Dom, we've got everyone, the presenters that have been presenting at Reactadelphia. We got Reactadelphia. This is it's awesome. But anyways, it's enough about me. Let's dive in. So I want to talk about automation. But before we talk about automation, we gotta connect. As developers, as people that share the same suffering. Debugging code and whatnot. We all share a few similar things that we enjoy about our day-to-day work. A lot of us like to write code. A lot of us like solving problems, creating new features, meeting acceptance criteria, whatever that means. But otherwise, it's just doing cool stuff, right? We want to do cool things, solve fun problems, use cool tools. But a lot of these things are better if we do them. They're better for us to go through that experience and learn something new in the process. There's a lot of things that there's not much to learn from, right? You can lint your code all day, but are you really going to learn how to be a better software developer just because ESLint told you you're missing a semicolon on line 49? Probably not. Same thing with testing. It's great to understand tests and how to write effective tests and what the different strategies are. But the process of doing it can be grueling. You sit there staring at your terminal for minutes and the test eventually passes or it fails. And then you spend the next 30 minutes rerunning those tests over and over again just to try to figure out what went wrong. It's a wild experience. And at the end of the day, it's better if someone else can run it on their machine instead of yours taking your time, right? So there's a few of these topics like linting, testing, building, and deploying that we can automate. And that's really what we want to focus on today. So again, before we dive into the deep end, let's get some terms out there. So when we talk about automation, a lot of times we'll also talk about CI or CD. The I and the D have been around forever. We've been integrating and delivering code for, 30, 40 years now? As long as coding has been a thing, as long as programmers have existed, we've continued to update our code and we've continued to deliver that code. What's different now is that there are a lot of tools that make it continuous or automate that process. What's really important about this, though, is understanding the difference between integration and delivery, because it just changes kind of the scope of things when you're talking about what you're doing. So continuous integration is the process of keeping your code up to date. So a lot of times you may have seen tests that run on a pull request before you can merge it into a master branch. That's a continuous integration tool or a continuous integration process. You're keeping your master branch clean by making sure that all of your tests pass before you merge your code. Continuous delivery, on the other hand, is a process of updating your applications, which oftentimes can include the same CI processes. For example, maybe you want to make sure that your tests pass before you do a build. In case someone snuck in a sneaky master commit at the last minute, you still want to make sure that that code's going to work before you deploy it. And in the big picture, this is where that sits in your kind of application architecture. You've got your code sitting in a repository somewhere, whether it's Bitbucket, GitHub, hopefully not SVN, or something older. And then you got your deployed application on this other side, and that's sitting on an AWS stack. It's sitting on an FTP server somewhere. It's deployed in some way. And in the middle here is that entire CI/CD pipeline, and this is where we're ripe for the picking for automation. This is where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. And again, that's the things that we don't enjoy doing, like linting, building, testing, deploying. So in the big picture of automation, we've already talked about two of these. We've covered integration and delivery, but there's one more level that we should really talk about, and that's local automation. This is your process. You as a developer, what do you make happen automatically? Do you use Git commit hooks? Do you keep a test runner running in the background so that whenever you make a file change, it automatically reruns all of your tests? Anything that runs on your machine, that's your local automation. And it's great. It's a really good first start. It's ensures your local dev environment cuts the mustard. All your tests are passing. Your local code is great. But ultimately, it doesn't help the team. It's only local. Again, like I mentioned before, that's where continuous integration comes in. This starts to run on someone else's machine and make sure that your master branch is good. So it doesn't matter what you do on your machine. It just matters what happens in the pull request, the single source of truth in the repository. And it also, again, ensures that environment branches are always buildable, always deployable, always passing, whatever terms you need to define to say that, yes, I can merge this code. That falls into the continuous integration. And then again, delivery, this is all about the environments. It can include many machines, many services. This is that really big picture process of how do we just get code from one place to another? So let's take a look. At the local level, again, we're talking the dev's machine. We've mentioned some of these, but Git hooks, overcommit, Husky, these are all tools that will run in your terminal. They'll run on your Mac, your Windows, your Linux box. They're things that you'll run while you're committing your code, while you're writing your code, while you're developing. Everything local. It's great because it integrates with your dev workflow. You can run this in your text editor. You can run it in a terminal in another virtual desktop on your screen. It's part of your flow. Most, if not all of them, are also free. Husky's free, GitHook's free, Overcommit free. There's so many free tools that fill into this niche. ESLint, the TypeScript compiler. These are all examples of tools that you can use for local automation. Some glaring disadvantages, though, are that they can be skipped. All it takes is one, excuse me, one git commit no verify, and your Husky pre-commit hooks or pre-push hooks don't mean anything. You can still get that code into the master branch or into a remote repository in spite of it having bugs or in spite of it not passing tests. Excuse me. And again, this runs on the local machine. So the better your machine, the faster they may run. But in some instances, your local machine could bog down and your tests take forever. That's actually something that we can highlight here as I transition to the next slide. In another project, this is a local version of the continuous integration build that I have to run in order to simulate what the actual continuous integration tool is doing. So same test, we'll see what they do on the next slide, but locally, they take about 6 minutes to run. This is a bunch of Jest tests followed by some UI regression tests that I set up recently. But with that in mind, it took 6 minutes to run locally. I can run that same job in 3 minutes less when I run it on Circle CI. So I'm using someone else's machine to give me 3 minutes back. That's 3 minutes every time I have to run those tests as part of my continuous integration process. So I'm going to run these tests no matter what. The difference is where I run them, whether I'm running them locally and it takes 6 minutes, almost 6.5, or if I run it on someone else's machine and it only takes 3 minutes and change. At this level, I mentioned Circle CI, but there's some others that you might be familiar with, like Travis CI, Jenkins. They're a dime a dozen. There's so many different tools at this level. What's more important, though, is, again, identifying those advantages and disadvantages. So these, unlike the ones that run on your local machine, are typically more difficult to skip. It's part of the pull request process. Code doesn't get from one branch into another without merging or creating pull requests. So as long as you're keeping your process clean and intact, these tools will stand in the way of malicious code ever reaching your master branch. And again, it saves time for developers. In my case, it saved me 3 minutes. Now, the important piece, though, is scaling this across a team. I'm just one developer. Many project teams have 10, 20, 30 developers. And if you imagine that even if only all it does is save 3 minutes per, that's 3 minutes across 10 developers, across months of development time. So there's a lot of savings to be had by just elevating one level. On the flip side, again, we've got disadvantages. There's more process. Process can add complexity. It adds time. It's one more thing that prevents you from getting code straight into the master branch. If I don't have any of these tools in place, I can push a bug fix straight to master and no one's the wiser. And it, sometimes it works, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. What this process does is ensure that every bit of code is treated the same way before it makes it in. But again, a lot of times there still are escape hatches. If I can commit straight to master, my CI tools don't mean anything. Then lastly, we've got continuous deployment. Again, this is big picture. On the right, I've got a screenshot I took from Buddy, which is one of the continuous delivery tools. At this level, it gets a little more vague and hard to define what a continuous delivery tool is versus what CI is. A lot of times they do get grouped together, but specifically we would be looking at things like Azure DevOps or Bitbucket pipelines, GitHub Actions. This is where, or the way that GitHub Actions is built, you can wire together a series of actions to act like a continuous deployment pipeline. So those are some examples. The advantages at this level is that it's your most comprehensive safety net. This is literally going to do everything. It's going to test your code. It's going to lint your code. It's going to build your code. It's going to deploy your code. This is how you create multiple environments from dev to staging to production, and make sure that each of them gets updated appropriately, and that feature goes to dev first, then QA, then staging, then production. It's, again, the highest degree of control and protection you can possibly have in this kind of automation stack. But on the flip side of that, as drastic as these as advantages can be, you get some disadvantages on that same kind of scale. So a lot of these solutions tend to be more expensive, or you tend to have to buy into an ecosystem. If we look at Buddy over here, for example, it has various different configurations based on whether you're serving to FTPS or FTP, or if you're integrating with Shopify, or if you're serving to Amazon. On the right, you can see the categories, and it just goes on and on. So you're really kind of locking yourself into a system unless you don't mind doing a complete overhaul of your CD pipeline. Things become more rigid. And lastly, it's automatic, even if you make mistakes. So let's say you've got a deployment date scheduled, and you want to make sure that your deployment goes off on a date at that time. And so you've decided that the one thing you want to do manually is confirm and merge the pull request that's going to kick off that deployment process. Well, you might do it early by accident. Something might happen and you might do it late. And at the end of the day, it's automatic. So if you make that mistake, it kicks off and it goes through the whole process. Granted, most tools will provide, again, an escape hatch. You can cancel a deployment when it's in flight. But it's not something to be or to ignore. It's just making sure that your process is safe and secure, so that when an automatic build or deployment does happen, you're prepared for that. And here we can actually go through a quick little demo. I created a project. So again, if you go to my GitHub, you can go to the CI demo project. This was just a create React app. I ran the starter script. I created one branch. If you want to see how to install Husky, it's actually pretty simple. The big thing is you add it, and then you create a new script in the package.json that adds a pre-commit script. So in this case, I just set a CI environment variable to true, so that the React scripts test script will run it in a CI mode. And then that's it. Now, when I commit my code, before every commit, it'll run my test scripts. So Husky, really, really simple. Again, there's virtually no reason you shouldn't investigate the tools that you can use in your local machines, in your local dev environments for automation. Now, if we go a level up, though, this is where things start to get interesting. So I've already gone to Circle CI, I've logged in, and I've associated, or I've given permissions for Circle CI to see all of my GitHub repos. So even my private ones show up on here. But if I jump into my CI demo, let's say I want to set up Circle CI to be my new pull request test runner. So I clicked on the name. It's now getting ready to build my configuration file for me. It actually even gives me some pre-configured setup scripts or configurations so that I can get started with any environment. We're all using React, so Node is going to be just fine. And all I want to do here is I believe I need to set those same flags, so CI true, just to make sure this works right. And npm test should do the trick. And I don't want to save. or muscle reflex, and then we'll hit start building. And this is actually another really cool part about a lot of the tools that you have access to, especially in the free tier, is I can do this manually, or it's already integrated with GitHub. So I can click the add config button. I can wait for Circle CI to do its thing. You'll see that I actually kind of demoed this already on this project, just to make sure that the script or that the demo would go off without a hitch. And if I go into this, I can actually see that the build already ran. It only took 38 seconds. And granted, that's only because it's got one test in it. But now I've got a CI pipeline already set up to build my tests. Well, so now what? All that's left is going into my project under settings. I can go under branches. And then under here, you can see these branch protection rules. And if in fact, I already have one created just to show you how it works. I've defined a very generic naming pattern. So basically any of these work, even if I had something like feature / my super awesome new feature, that branch name would also match this pattern. I can come in here and say that I want to require status checks to pass before merging. I check off that build. And again, I just created this in that previous step. So it's already showing up in my GitHub. And I can check that box. I can hit save changes. I don't need to in this case because I haven't changed anything, but we'll do it for the exercise of it all. And now that that rule has been saved, I can actually come in here to pull requests, and we'll see that it's giving me the suggestion to create one for the Circle CI project setup. And when I create that, we'll see a new piece down here. And it's actually going to tell me that the checks haven't completed, so I cannot merge. If I try to, it's going to ask me to use my admin privileges. So that's a really cool thing, is that I'm in less than, how long have I been talking about this? 3 minutes. We've already got Circle CI set up to build and run our project and its tests. If we sit here for a few more seconds, everything should turn green, at least if the last test was in the indicator, at which point we should be able to merge the pull request without admin access. We'll give it a couple more seconds just in case. Waiting for status to be reported. It wouldn't be, I wonder if it's got the wrong build set up. Or
It wouldn't be a Zak talk without some fails, man.
It really wouldn't. But I guess the long story here is that I might have to actually push a commit to it. Is there, let's see, Dom, you might know a hacky way to do this. Is there a way to make a commit within GitHub, the web UI? Yeah, I just need to make an edit, because a lot of times these builds only kick off once something has been done. You sure can. Cody, what's the secret? Go to commits. True, readme change. Well, I'm on this branch. Okay, so there we go. All right, so branch master, we're going to go to Circle CI project setup. And then I know, it'd be great. So let's see. Test edit. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll commit directly to that setup branch. We'll commit those changes. We'll go back to our pull request. Please show up. Okay, cool. So we got the upgrade to readme. Oh, yes. All right, so we can see it. It's running our tests. Good. We can see again that it's required. If I click on the details, it's going to take me straight to that test runner, and I'll be able to watch the process as it unfolds. And again, we don't need to watch everything on this UI. We can jump back to here just to show that final experience. Hopefully within 38 seconds, like the last build, everything will turn green and we can merge the pull request. I'm not going to do that. Well, actually, I take that back. I will do it because we want to see what that config looks like after this talk. And that way others can reference it. But that's as easy as the workflow is. Again, I demonstrated Circle CI. There are many other tools out there. Most, if not, well, I can't say all, most of them also, especially the modern ones, provide an almost identical seamless setup experience. These really aren't tools that are difficult to set up or work with. And they really do get a lot of the nitty gritty day-to-day boring details out of the way so that you can really focus on things that you enjoy doing the most. So just to recap, CI/CD is awesome. especially when you can demo it in less than 5 minutes. Or in this case, 10 minutes was the previous record. I was able to do the demo in less than 5, I think. Again, most of the tools are free, and it also gives you a reason to blame the tool. I set up the pipeline just right. It was GitHub's fault that it didn't tell Circle CI that I wanted to run that test for my demo. So I had to create another commit. That was the tool's fault, not mine, of course. And if we really want to look at advantages and disadvantages, the advantages are that it saves you time. It covers your ass, or covers your booty if you're not from Philly and need to be PG. And in honesty, it's got potential to crown you employee of the month if you bring this to your dev team and say, hey, I can save everyone minutes every day for the rest of your life. And if we look at the disadvantages, you can tell that these are smaller and less significant. So the advantages drastically outweigh them. Process, of course, can be slow. It can get in the way. We've all had tests that were flaky or imperfect. And at the end of the day, process is also just one more thing to knowledge transfer. It's one more thing to learn and know about. But if you really had to weigh the disadvantages against these advantages, you're really talking about developer experience. You're talking about efficiency. You're talking about confidence, knowing that the work you're doing is going to meet the expectations that you're setting. You write good code once, you don't want to deploy a broken build the next time. Automation, CI/CD pipelines are here to help. So here's some additional resources. I think we're here for QA for a little bit. I've linked to everything I've talked about, everything I've used, and then I've got some additional information about some of those Git hooks. The slides, I'll post them in our Meetup channel, in the Slack channel, and in Discord. So I'll tweet about it. There'll be plenty of ways for anyone to get in touch. But I'll pause now for any questions if we are taking them, Dom.
Yeah, we can definitely take any questions in the chat. We got some time. We're actually like 30 minutes early, even though I dropped the ball heavily.
You know how to recover.
No, seriously, like I was on a call with Ryan seconds from full raging and punching my monitors, but he recovered me as he usually does. Everybody's talking about how Jenkins is always on job requirements. Jenkins is a plus. I feel like anytime I go somewhere, it's just one person that knows Jenkins and they leave them in a corner.
Oh man, yeah. It's at this point, I don't know if I don't like Jenkins because it's a tool I don't like, or if I don't like Jenkins because everyone else I know doesn't like Jenkins.
Yeah. Well, then you probably hate React too. But question in the chat, Sticking Points asks, question: how long and luxurious is your hair right now?
It's down to the shoulders. It's taken 2 years. Wait, what are we on? Year and a half? Year and a half so far, not the 2-year mark.
Of just growing the hair?
Growing it out.
I remember when it was like neck length.
I'm braiding it.
I remember when it was neck length when you first started coming to Reactadelphia. That was my favorite.
Yeah, that was back when I wore shorts. That was before social isolation.
I mean, let's be honest. You barely wore the shorts. They were freaking breaking like the Hulk.
That's not my fault. I go to the gym. Well, I can't now. So
beast. Yeah, that's true. Now you're just at home.
Dom,
guy.
You're gonna be surprised how small I am when you see me next.
Nah. I can't wait to see you next, man. Come on. I'm gonna give you the best hug you've ever gotten in your life.
That's good.
Well,
can we automate that?
Per usual, you're the freaking man. Thanks for filling in. Thanks for always being there for some absolutely mind-boggling, fantastic talks. There's no doubt we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always been a pleasure.